Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of All Things NBA from A to Z, presented by ballislife.com. I'm Kris Pursiainen here alongside Zak Noble, as per usual, but not as per usual, is our very special guest joining us today, NBA reporter at ESPN. It's Kendra Andrews here in the wake of the most devastating Liberty playoff loss I think I've watched with mine own two eyes. It's Friday, October 11th, day of recording. Kendra, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and talk about this upcoming exciting NBA season. How are you? How we
I'm
doing?
doing good. I'm good. I mean, I'm better than you with your Liberty, but we also have a Minnesota guy in here, so I guess you guys are kind of butting heads right now too, huh?
You
This is the
know,
most I've ever gotten in the link, so this was fun.
and if you are looking at the other league, our teams just made a big trade. So it's been
Yeah.
there has been tensions recently between the two of us,
I
and
don't hate Chris as much right now.
Good.
but just slightly less than usual. And joining us now, our third co-host, but not our least important, it's AC, it's analytics capper Albert. How we doing? Perfect timing, baby. What's going on?
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm doing great right now. As you guys know, I have three girls under 5 years old, so I was on duty to pick them up. So sorry I'm late a little bit.
Listen, man, school's what, like a month ago school started, so we're still getting in the rhythm of things. I don't blame you. Kendra, let's get to it. We got to start with the Golden State Warriors, who going into this season have plenty of new faces. Last night, Dallas fans saw Klay Thompson in blue and white, and Al, give us a little nod there, little look down for me for a second. Yeah. So we see what, yep. So we got a perfect mix of people to talk about the Warriors right here. Kendra, what feeling are you getting from that team? Like, we are in an age where we have so many amazing young stars, and then you watch Olympic basketball happen, and it's like, well, we're gonna go with Old Faithful here. LeBron, Steph, KD, take care of
Yeah.
things. Steph is still one of those guys, and the three of us argue all the time about how good he is in relation to the rest of the NBA because I still think he is count on one hand top players. Like I'm still there. Um, what is your feeling going into the season with the Warriors? Does this feel like a team that thinks they can go out and get this done and Steph can win another ring and the legacy will grow on? Or is it that moment where the car, like, you should have refueled a little earlier? You're in the highway, it's bumper to bumper. You might not make it home.
If there is somewhere within an in between is where I put the Warriors right now because they feel that Steph still is that guy. And their mantra is always, well, as long as we have Steph, we have a chance, right? But they also know that it's the way that the league has gone and is going, and especially in the Western Conference, you need more than just one guy. And you even can look at the Lakers with LeBron, you can look at the Suns with Kevin Durant. It's not just about having that one guy anymore. You do need the supporting cast members. The Warriors feel that they are a better team than they were last year, just whether it's mindset, whether it's about being able to turn a page and head into a somewhat new era, whether it's about the depth and the belief that they have in their young guys to take a step up. They think that they're better than they were. But it's interesting when it comes to that championship and getting Steph his fifth ring and that elusive title. Mike Dunleavy, a couple weeks ago before training camp, before media day, said, so much for fans, it's championship or fail. And he said, we don't quite view it that way. They have Steph for until through the end of 2027. So that's 2, 3 more years at this point. So they're not measuring this season as championship or failure. It's about kind of taking those steps toward there to hopefully, yes, get him another ring before he's done. But I also think that they understand how much of an uphill climb it's going to be this season based on where they're at as a team, based on where the Western Conference is as a conference. And it's not something that's just going to be so easy that Steph can get them like that.
Yeah, no, I feel that, and I think they've done a great job of transitioning from Clay. I really like their depth for the first time in many years. I haven't liked their depth over the last few years, that's for sure. But I still am with you. I think they do need another star to take over when Steph isn't fully feeling it, you know? And so is it they believe in Kuminga enough to take that next level? Do they think he has all-star potential, or is this more of a holding pattern? Do you think they would try to sell somewhat high on him or Podziemski here if the way things play out?
Yeah, I think it's all on the table, especially right now. They do have confidence in Kuminga, and Kuminga told my colleague Mark Spears that being an all-star is a goal for him this year, especially with it being in San Francisco. He wants to take that step in his fourth season, and they have, hope and confidence that he'll be better. They have confidence that Podziemski is going to be able to take on a larger role. They have confidence that Andrew Wiggins is a guy who's going to be able to kind of at least return a little bit to that version of himself who a couple years ago was so important to that championship team. But Zach, to the trading question, it is on the table. Joe Lacob is an owner who has never shied away from making moves, from buying or selling, but it's just about the right player. And I talked to him recently during training camp, and he said, yeah, we did miss out on some players over the summer, Paul George, Lauri Markkanen, but we are entering this season with all of our assets. And so come trade deadline, if there is a guy that they feel, let's assess this group, because they haven't seen this group play with Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton, Kyle Anderson, all these new faces and people in new roles. If we can assess them for 2 months, 3 months, and then come trade deadline, if we feel that we need to make something and there is a person out there, he's like, I've never been a person to not want to make a move or not go out there and spend some more money. It's just about having the options, but they like that they at least have the capital right now to make those moves if it comes up.
Kendra, if you don't know this, I do have some Bay Area roots. I went to Cal, Oakland, East Bay is was my home for 5.5 years, and that was during the We Believe Warriors. But a lot of times during that era was this Bay Area, I guess you can call it, rivalry between the Warriors and the Kings. The Kings made a couple moves in the offseason, including, the acquisition of DeMar DeRozan, professional mid-range scorer, one of the best ever to do it. How do you think they're going to integrate his game from a Kings perspective? And what do you think with the offense moving forward?
Yeah, good timing for that question. I just spent the past couple of days with Sacramento and talking to DeMar and DeMontis and all these guys, and they're very excited about what DeMar brings. You mentioned the veteran presence. One of the assistant coaches told me, like, when he talks, everyone just shuts up and listen. Like, they're clinging on to every single word. So from a veteran standpoint, it's something that the Kings felt like they lacked. But then also from the offensive standpoint, the two-man game with him and Sabonis is something that they're really looking forward to integrating. Sabonis pointed out, like, off the dribble handoff right now, DeMar, through that, just one preseason game that they've played since we've recorded this, and it was against the Warriors. DeMar shot perfect from the floor. So he's already getting really comfortable with this team. And then the other thing the Kings are really excited about is having him and De'Aaron Fox be able to play next to each other, especially in late game scenarios, because you have De'Aaron won clutch player of the year 2 years ago. DeMar is one of the best guys in the clutch. So they feel that having those two options next to each other, it's going to have to keep defenses really honest. So you can't just throw a blitz at DeMar or De'Aaron and double, triple team them. The other interesting thing that Sabonis mentioned to me about this is when he looks back at last season, the Kings beat all the big teams, right? Like, they beat the Nuggets, they beat the Lakers, they beat the Wolves, and then they went and they lost to teams that they feel are a little bit behind them. Sometimes Portland, a team that's really in the early stages of rebuilding, or Houston that's still kind of piecing things together. And Sabonis said having DeMar here to just make sure everyone's held accountable on those nights where we're maybe not like, yeah, guys, like, let's go get it. Having him there is going to be a really good impact for this group.
Absolutely. And yeah, we saw you talking with that person you may know a little bit about it at ESPN about your sit down with DeMar, Miss Malika. It was definitely great hearing your insight, and it's interesting, right? Because that team's identity, Mike Brown, like it's like watching a college football offense. Like it's eye candy, lots of motion, pre-snap motion, they're very complex in a way where they're like, we're just gonna outthink you. Like you're gonna be finding your man, and then boom, there's Herder for three. Like you didn't even have time. Very interesting to see DeMar. It's all about scheme versatility in the playoffs, right? We talk about this all the time. Scheme versatility and beating closeouts. And DeMar brings a different kind of flavor to their offense that I don't want to say they were missing because that would feel disrespectful to my absolute guy Malik Monk Hooper. But DeMar is DeMar, and that's going to be a really interesting acquisition. It's been cool seeing the Kings too, our own little version of an inside look in Starting Five, the show that just came out, and also featured on that show on top of Domantas Sabonis is none other than LeBron James. And since we've got a West Coast theme going, I want to ask you, I guess a similar question to what we were talking about with Steph Curry, which is, do they have the juice? Like, do the Lakers have the juice? Albert thinks AD is a top 5 level guy, and it's hard to disagree when you look at accolades, impact, you name it. Do they have the juice?
It's a good question, and I wish I had the answer too, right? Like that, it's always more fun, I think, as just an NBA fan when the LeBron's teams and the Steph teams and the KD teams are doing better. It's just so fun to watch them absolutely dominate. And I think the Lakers are in a really interesting position. Obviously new head coach, but for the past couple years, it feels honestly similar but different. So, but like to the Warriors in the sense of you do have the staple guy, the man, but you're also integrating younger players, and that's kind of where the Lakers are a little bit. I agree with you guys. Like Anthony Davis is absolutely tremendous, and when he takes over, it is just so great to watch. And I think the past year they kind of really finally started to figure out where to put him to be successful. And at the same time, I again seeing the Warriors kind of exit the Clay era and how they've talked about it, I think there's also something to be said about when you flip the page in one way or another, it does open you up to new possibilities. And so I think the Lakers, when they're anchored in LeBron, and then LeBron and AD and everything else, there's only so much you can do because you're still anchored around them. You can't change very much. So I think the Lakers are going to be an interesting team to watch this season. But again, as you look at the rest of the Western Conference, I can't sit here on October 11th and say, I think they're going to be competing for the top of the West. Could be competing for maybe somewhere in the middle, a play-in situation. But just when I was having a conversation, I'm sure you guys talk about this type of stuff all the time, is like, who are your top 6? And then who are your top 8 to 10 in the West? And I can't even put them in order. Like whenever I start ranking them, I'm like, this is in no particular order because I don't know. But there's just so many options that it'll take a lot for a team that's not clearly in my top 5 or 6 to break in there.
Since you recently did it,
Oh man.
who's breaking out in your mind, and then who's kind of falling back? Just give me one riser and one faller.
One riser, one fall. So my riser, and I feel like this is a consensus, but I personally don't think they're gonna I think the Grizzlies are going to rise, but I don't know if
The only way they have to go.
right. But I'm like, I don't know if I'm as high on them as like getting a top, like finishing second or first in the West as other people. Like I kind of have them more maybe in like the 4-5 range, but like that seems anytime I say that, people are like, what are you talking about? They're going to be the number 2 in the West. I'm like, I don't know. But my fall,
I think it's just how much you believe in Ja, like
yeah,
as a changed man,
yeah.
because they have the goods as a team, I think.
I think they do. I do believe in him. And then there's also just a part of me that's like, I don't know. I don't know.
I think he wants to prove people wrong so
Yeah.
badly. Like I think he wants to prove people wrong so bad. I'm worried because they've been talking about like Jaren has been hinting that Zach Edey is shooting threes. And it's
Yeah,
like,
I think so.
well, this is the team that did what to Brandon Clark's shot again? Like, can we not have Edey do that? Get your ass in the paint, get your ass in the post.
Yeah.
Listen, Ja's gonna get you these entry passes. Dez is gonna get you these entry passes, man. Butt to the rim. Let's get physical. I don't know. I almost don't want to see Edie shoot threes because I
No,
think
I
they have
agree.
they have an identity. And if Jaren's gonna grow in that way, that's but I'm
Yeah.
with you. I think
But
Ja's stock is up.
I do think they're going to be good though. Like, because I don't want people being like, Kendra doesn't think the Grizzlies are going to be, no, like they're going to be really good. I'm just like, again, when I'm placing them in my top 6 seeds, I don't know where they fit for me in there.
The fact of the matter is you have to do more projecting with them than some other teams. Like this is a business where it's what have you done for me recently?
Right.
Not ever. And the Grizzlies, like they're not building on momentum. Like obviously this is the biggest underhand softball home run ever, but like the Thunder,
Yeah.
Josh Giddey out, Caruso Hartenstein in, already really good. Their
Yeah.
identity is kind of like being a chameleon and not having one identity. They're super versatile scheme wise. Now they're adding 2 connecting plus defending. Like it's just so
Yeah.
Thunder of them. It's not
It
as
is.
easy as it is with the Grizzlies to project improvement.
Exactly. And it's interesting for me when I think about rankings because I say Thunder 1, but then when you do get to that, who I think would be 2, I don't think it's the Nuggets. I think the Nuggets maybe is a 3 or a 4. I don't think it's Dallas. I think so, but then as you kind of piece things together, it is like who okay, like someone has to fit 2, and I just I don't know where I'd put them. I think to Zach's other question of who I think falls, and this might be obvious, like I think the Clippers fall in my book. Maybe they're still in the postseason picture, but to me, it would be via play-in or a lower seed. I just don't, you know, with Paul George leaving, Kawhi didn't participate in any of training camp. He's still getting back. Like to me, they're a question of what's gonna go on there.
Yeah, you have to believe in a Harden vintage MVP season, but
Mm.
it's been a few years for that.
This guy, man, this guy will never let it go.
So my hot take, Kendra, my hot take, and I actually think that Grizzlies are going to be pretty solid, and I think Ja is a great player. But I think if they don't get close to expectations by the trade deadline, I have zero inside information on this, but I would not be surprised if they just hit the reset button, whether that's Ja or that's Bane, but that's a lot of value that they can acquire back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the West Coast. We love the West, but we do have our resident Kris Pursiainen. New York Knicks, massive moves, right? Mikal Bridges. We thought that was all they're gonna do, but no, they also got Karl-Anthony Towns. It's by far their deepest and most talented roster in, I guess, our adult lives, right? So like, what do you think, Kendra, what are their realistic goals? And do you think they can get there?
I think one of the reasons why they, are being so aggressive is as we sit and try and rank the West because it's just so crowded, the East has the exact opposite problem where it's like it's the Celtics and then it's the New York Knicks and like they see that they have a opening, right, to just really cement themselves in the top 2 in the Eastern Conference. And so they're trying to go all in on that again. Also, we were talking about building momentum. Like I think them and the Thunder have the most momentum heading into this season just based off of how the Knicks did last year. And it was a really, disappointing ending in the style in which it ended. But I like what they've done. I am curious about the Karl-Anthony Towns move and how much it's going to impact and affect and improve the team. I don't say, oh my gosh, like that completely just punched their ticket, to the Eastern Conference Finals or to even the finals. But I also am like, it's not a bad move. But I think that the Knicks really understand the landscape that they're in. And when you look at the other teams in the East, like the 76ers are my favorite example of like, they've just kind of been lingering around for so long and they've never actually been able to do something. And so the Knicks, they want to be able to, again, they can kind of hop, I don't know what the word is, but like hop them in line and stuff. And especially in the postseason. And so if you can get this kind of depth, injuries just like absolutely destroyed them in the playoffs last year. So if you can get this kind of depth come postseason, like it's going to give them an advantage because no one seems to be able to stay healthy by then. I'm excited for New York. I think again, kind of like what I was saying about the NBA is better when LeBron, Steph, and KD are winning. I think the NBA is better when it has these kinds of markets that are also playing really well. And New York is absolutely one of those cities where it's just like the NBA is a happier place to be in when New York is enjoying their life. And I have to listen to Stephen A lot, and so I like him to be happy.
Listen, I think if the Knicks were parading down 8th Avenue, Stephen A might take issue with the I don't know, maybe not enough confetti, maybe too much, maybe I don't I hope the Knicks win and I hope New York City, that air, that positivity is there. I don't know if it'd be enough for Stephen A. We'd have to see. We'd have to monitor that. It may be something like a Cowboys playoff elimination on the same day.
What?
Some
Could that
some
happen?
something
Like
something like that.
countdown?
Maybe Stephen A would be like satisfied with the Knicks, maybe.
Some
Sorry,
random
Al.
shit right there.
Sorry. We're going through his biggest gripes. Dallas
Oh, okay.
Cowboys are number one. Kendra, we were talking about the W and last night's just brutality from from my Liberty, but it got me thinking when preparing for this show that Sabrina made a leap that reminds me a lot of just what it looks like when someone cements themselves, when someone catches up to the hype and even surpasses it. You could say, like, when players go from being overrated, quote unquote, for so many years that they do it, they're atop the world, and all of a sudden they're living up to it. We saw it in the NBA a couple times. Jokic, Giannis, these guys were told they couldn't win in the playoffs. They weren't a number one. All of a sudden, they chip up. They're the best in the world. Is there an NBA player that we could see have that kind of leap to championship status this season? And then I want to ask you as a part B, is there a young player who we could see make a little leap, maybe first All-Star game, maybe total turnaround, but a big dog and a little dog, just some positive thinking as we end this episode and head into the 2025 NBA season. Breakouts.
The team and they've been on a little bit of a climb, but the team I think of is Oklahoma and a Chet Holmgren. Go Zags, got to stand up for my Gonzaga.
Haha.
But I think that in terms of like young players and who haven't achieved it, because the other answer is like Ant Edwards, but I think that like we've seen he broke out onto the scene last season, and Chet, like he's been great since he came back from his injury and stuff, but I still do think that he and his team can kind of take it up to another level. Shea as well, I think that just that combo. So maybe that's a little cop out because it's not one player, but it's two. But I still feel like those two guys have a serious opportunity to take that next step. I think Shea is going to be another candidate for MVP this season off of last year. and everything that OKC is doing, I think them as a group has a real opportunity to cement themselves fully in the championship conversation, especially because they were eliminated so early in the playoffs last season. What the for first all-star, oh my gosh, I feel like I can never keep track of who actually has been an all-star and who has not been an all-star. So
I get it.
I mean, you know, I think an interest, maybe this isn't fully answering your question, but I'm gonna take it partly as I'm interested to see if Wemby gets in an all-star because like he is so good and so talented. And then I also think about, and this is just the way my people kind of get on me because they're like, you're too rational of a thinker. And I'm like, that's just what I like, that's how I go. But like, okay,
Such a terrible thing to be.
right?
No.
People hate it in the NBA. But I'm like, okay, if Wemby's going to be an all-star, who is he going to kick out? And there has been some like player movement in general, so that opens the door. But I think that I'm curious to see if his play will get them there, or people will like when they're making their reserves, if coaches and everyone who votes for the reserves wants to get him in there.
They got him vets. I mean, and Sam Vecini and Fred Katz were talking about this. I don't know that Chris Paul is a top 15 point guard, but he's a starting point guard. Like we know that for sure. Harrison Barnes, defense. It's not happening recently, but that man is a 4 that can shoot that thing, and that could really help out Wemby. You're looking for internal development, right? Vass, Sohan, but it should be really fun. I love that pick, and even Chet, like he could. Depends on how they deploy Hartenstein, but like they could have like 3 different death lineups, which is terrifying and fun in what is a very miry, hard to predict Western Conference. Kendra Andrews tried, and I would say succeeded to break it down rationally. I personally, I'm like, what if Russ is back? What if I can never be normal? So thank you so much. I gotta say, Kendra, thank you so much. We know you're so busy. It's awesome, but we thank you so much for taking the time to chat for a little, just talk some hoops with us. Guys, anything else you want to add before we let Kendra go?
Before we let Kendra go, we got to get her guarantee that she'll be back on the show during the season.
Wow.
I would love to talk about it, especially second half, or we preview the W because you guys know I'm obsessed with the WNBA.
Absolutely. We'll make it happen for
We'll
sure.
talk on
Love
the
it.
spot. Love it. Kendra, thank you so much. Best of luck as you go into what is, I'm sure, a very calm and relaxed and casual time of year for someone with a profession like yours. Thank you. If you're listening, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, notification bell, you name it. If there's a button, click it. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on All Things NBA, presented as always by Ball is Life.